You are listening to Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan.
Welcome, everyone, to the Squid and Ultimate Leafs Fan Show, brought to you by the Hockey News. With over 2 million dedicated readers, the Hockey News is the authoritative source of hockey and the number one publication in North America. With an ever-growing podcast network and video database on top of an already established print and digital brand, the Hockey News is there to cover all major hockey stories from around the world. Visit thn.com/deal to get the best value on a subscription to the Hockey News. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs Fan, and joining me as always is Rick Vibe, affectionately known as Squid. Squid, what's been up since we last spoke?
Well, we got a little hockey going, Mike, and obviously still going out playing a little golf, and it's been quite nice actually to turn the TV on and actually watch a hockey game for a change, because it's been so long, and but it's been fun. It's been fun.
Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about the Leafs as usual and what's been going on with them. Some good things happening the other night. But I think we have a pretty exciting guest today that I'm sure our listeners are going to be thrilled to hear from, and that's one of the all-time great Maple Leafs, Borje Salming. You know, you've got some background with him. I think you guys played together for 7 years, if I'm not mistaken.
7 years, yeah, 7 years we played together, and I remember when I first got traded there, and they put me in a stall, and I got Borje on my right-hand side and Ronnie Ellis on the other side. And I'm like sitting there going, okay, like I got the devil. It seemed like I had the devil on this shoulder and the angel on this shoulder. I leaned a little bit more towards the devil's side. And Borje and I became very close and very good friends. And he was a fantastic individual. And not only that, but a sensational hockey player, both defensively and offensively. And I don't think he gets enough credit for how good he was defensively.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things, because he always had the puck all the time, sir, but he thought he was always off there. But he took it off, guys. That's how he got it.
Oh, yeah. And, of course, it was different back then. I mean, the rules were different. The can opener he used. And I remember times in practice going down the wing, and you'd have a step on him, and he'd reach in, put his stick between yours and your body and twist, and then the puck would go off into the corner. And, oh, my God, you get so mad at him. But in the games, it was great because he did the same thing, and then he'd go and retrieve the puck and move it, and we'd be out of the zone.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to do a little deeper dive into his career, starting right back in Sweden and, right up to today. So we've got lots to talk about with him. But first and foremost, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the lads. A little better game. I think they listened to us the other day when we told them that they cannot chase the game playing against a team like Columbus. And they did exactly that on Tuesday. Now, we're recording this. They play tonight and tomorrow. So hopefully we've got some good results next time we speak to you guys next week. But in the meantime, what do you think of Tuesday night's game? Obviously, it all worked.
Oh, I thought they were pretty good. There was a couple of guys that maybe didn't. Mitch Marner, I didn't think played his best. John Tavares was unbelievable. Matthews was excellent. As a team, they were really good. And like I said, they got that first goal, and then they didn't take their foot off the pedal. They just kept going and basically dominated. I mean, it could have been 5-0. Very easily going into the second period, but the puck just wasn't going in. But yeah, they can't get behind. We talked about it before. They can't get behind Columbus because they're just going to jam everything up, and then they're gonna probably try a little bit harder, and then that's when mistakes happen and 2-on-1s against happen, and we saw that in the first game. So hopefully, they learn their lesson, and going forward, they're gonna take that approach that we got to come out ready to play, get that first goal, and then go from there.
Well, one of the things we noticed is that, playing with the lead is so much easier, especially for a team like the Maple Leafs, because what it does is it takes that suffocating defense off, puts it on hold while they chase the game, and opening up the game makes it so much more better for the Toronto players, especially the forwards they have up front. But I think Kyle Clifford's hit on Dean Kukan set the stage for the day. And those guys got a lot more ice time. They play a little bit more in the third period. But I think they could play those guys a little bit more tonight even and give a little bit more of that brute, I guess, sort of forward checking that has been that truculent is probably the word that Brian Burke would use, is a little bit more, I think, of what they at least have got to dose out tonight to Columbus, because they're going to come back pretty hard tonight. You know that.
Oh, there's no question that Columbus they're going to want to get back and lead the series, and they're going to come out and they're going to give everything they have. But yeah, I'd like to see that. It depends on what Columbus does too, though. That's the problem is, they like to match lines, both teams. And if Columbus doesn't play their fourth line that much, then that means Toronto's fourth line is not going to play that much. But yeah, it would be nice to see them out there, even if they got to go against Columbus's third line or second line, they can handle that. And Clifford, his big hits, they turn the game around, they turn the momentum around, and that's what they need more than anything else. So I agree. I think regardless, if Columbus throws out their second line, I think Toronto's fourth line can handle that and go out and get the job done.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is you want to take that heavy game away from them and make them play out of their comfort zone. And their comfort zone is an open game where it's not quite as tight checking and they're playing that forward press. And now with Jake Muzzin out of the lineup tonight and for the rest of the series, Martin Marincin is going to have that puck dumped into his corners a few times to start this game off. So it's going to be imperative that the Toronto forwards come back and pick up their wingers. And they're going to have to play as tough as they did tonight in both ends, but even take it up a notch further with Muzzin out of the lineup.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to. And what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to play a lot better as a five-man unit now. Marincin hasn't played yet. He's a good 6-7 defenseman in the National League, but he's not Jake Muzzin either. And we know Jake Muzzin has won a Stanley Cup. We know what he knows what he has to do. Marincin's not in that situation. So I think when he's on the ice, they got to play really good as a five-man unit and support him, support not just him, but everybody. I mean, they got to play as a five-man unit through 60 minutes. And when Toronto plays as a five-man unit, they're very, very dangerous. And, but when they don't, then they get in a little bit of trouble. And Columbus is just going to sit back and they're going to wait for opportunities. And if they capitalize on it and Toronto has to chase the game, their odds of winning are decreased by quite a bit.
Well, you know that the old fiery coach there, John Tortorella, he wasn't taking that line down. You could tell by his crusty answers to the media, he's not a happy guy. So you know where that's going to channel to the players. So at least better be prepared tonight. Now, what do you think of young Nick Robinson? I mean, he's back-to-back games. He played the second power play that he certainly wasn't shy to shoot that puck. And I'll tell you what, I have no problem with that. You know what? One of these is going to go in at some point. You know what? Keep firing them.
Well, when you're a goal scorer, you shoot. And you don't hesitate. You don't worry about, whether or not it's going to go in. If you're a goal scorer, you shoot the puck. Every time you get an opportunity, shoot the darn puck. Because, like you said, one of them's going to squeak through, and that could be a really big goal. And we don't know for sure, but I like the fact that he's shooting the puck, taking some chances. And as a goal scorer, I think that's what you have to do. And like you said, I think the best thing is that one of them is going to go in sooner or later, and it could be a big one.
As always, we will watch with great hope and interest, but it's time to bring our guest on. So without further ado, one of the first Europeans to play in the National Hockey League, made an immediate impact with the Maple Leafs, becoming a premier defenseman of his era, inducted in the Hall of Fame in 1996 that is, named one of the greatest 100 players of all time in the NHL, and of course, an elite Maple Leaf, one of the best of all time, known as the King. We welcome Borje Salming. Borje, thanks for joining us today, and how are you coping these days with everything going on?
Well, thanks. No, I'm pretty good. I'm getting old. 69 years old, turning 70 next year. So I'm getting there, but I'm fine. Really, I'm feeling good.
Well, catching up to you, you got one of your old buddies here with me, Squid, on the other side of the.
Yeah. Wow, that's nice to hear him. I talked to him for a week ago too. So and I always see him when we get over to the Hall of Fame weekend and all that. But now we haven't seen each other for such a long time because the virus.
Yeah. So speaking of which, but the virus, it's put a little bit of crimp and everything going on. What do you think of the NHL playoff format?
Well, and I think it's pretty good. Even of course, you want to have the people up, watching the games for the players. But I actually watched the second game, and they really played good. So I saw that because it was an early game. So hopefully they're playing. I think they're playing tonight, aren't they?
Yeah, they play tonight and play tomorrow. So I think, if they play like they did, they had a good shot. So you still follow with great interest, obviously, the Maple Leafs.
Mm-hmm. No, it is. Well, I think. I mean, it's really hard, to see. But for example, we can watch it on TV, so that's no problem to watch the hockey. It's sort of watching TV in the regular time. So, but I guess it's hard for the players to play without no people on the stands. So that's the only thing, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, so we're going to watch with great interest, though. So Squid and I have been talking a lot about it on our podcast. But now I'm 66 this year, too. So I'm catching up to you, Borje. But, and, Rick's a couple years behind us. But for the young listeners, I would like to go back in your career. And starting back in Sweden, you played Division II for a few years. And you were 16, I think, when you started playing there. Then you graduated to the elite level for 3 years. Just talk about those years playing in those leagues.
Well, I mean, I come from the north part of Sweden. Kiruna is really far up there. And then I moved down to called Elite League today, which is the top league. And I played with Brynäs, which is sort of the top team there, and won the championship for 2 years. And on the same time, I sort of qualified for the national team too. So I played 2 world tournaments in Czechoslovakia, in Prague, and also in Moscow in '73. Just after that, I joined Toronto Maple Leafs.
Now let's walk through that. I mean, growing up as a young guy in northern part of Sweden, I played in Gotland, by the way, for a year.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
So I know all about Division II. Now, did you ever dream of possibly playing in the NHL, or were you just happy to play elite hockey and represent your country at World Championships?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was going to say in Kiruna we almost didn't have a TV, so you didn't know too much about National Hockey League really, and I never had a dream of National Hockey League. My dream was, I was growing up with my older brother who sort of, was above me the whole time. So I followed him all the way. And also in Brynäs, he went down there for 2 years before me. And then when I came down there, I played with him as a partner too. So I was following him. So he was my idol. Sort of, that's what it was until I went over to Canada.
Well, let's walk through that. Jerry McNamara.
Yeah.
Now, Jerry McNamara did an event at my house tonight, and we talked this whole story about his career. So this is one of the highlights, obviously, is when he found you. But when he went to Sweden, he didn't go to look at you the first time, did he?
No, he was looking actually, now afterwards, actually, he was looking for a goaltender, in Stockholm. And that's what it was. He was there and looked at him. And then all of a sudden, I think the Canadian team came over for a tournament, which was in my town. And then he I guess he met those guys, and they said, at least follow us. But I think he knew about Inge Hammerström.
Yes.
Yeah. So he knew about Inge, so he wasn't really interested in him. So that's why he went there.
Now, he tells the story that after watching you play, now this is Jerry's version, he actually went.
Jerry's version might be different than everybody else's, but anyway.
Well, you can talk in here at any time there, Squid. We'll give you a second here. But Jerry's version, and keep this in mind, boys, I'm giving his take on this, was that, Borje, he was looking for you after one of your games. He popped his head into a couple of the dressing rooms, and he found you, and he looked at you, and you said, you play for the Maple Leafs? And you said, yes. And he said, I'll get back to you. And that's kind of how it all started. Is that what you remember?
Yeah, well, when he came down to the dressing room, he actually, I got when we played against the Canadian team, I got a game misconduct in the third period. So when I got game misconduct, I went into the dressing room. So all of a sudden, when I was sitting there by myself, I think it was just a trainer, he came in. All of a sudden, there was big guy coming in and talking English. I mean, I didn't speak so much English at that time, so. But he said where he was from Canada, and he just asked me right away, do you want to play hockey in Canada, in Toronto Maple Leafs? And I understood like Canada and Toronto Maple Leafs because I heard it, so I said yes. And then he gave me his card and said, here's my card, I get in touch with you. Okay, I said. I guess.
Well, as the story continues from there, apparently, and this is a lot of people may not know this, but back in Toronto, Bob Davidson was the head scout of the Maple Leafs, and Jerry worked for him. So now they had a very, let's put it this way, bombastic owner in Mr. Harold Ballard. So, when Jerry went back and was given the scouting reports on you and a couple other players, Bob, I think, as Jerry puts it, nose was a little bit out of joint because he wanted to report to Harold. He didn't want to look bad. So he said he would come and look at you guys play. So when they came back to Sweden to watch you, you had said to Jerry, according to Jerry's story, is that I've got a couple other guys you might be interested in. One guy's name was Anders Hedberg, and the other guy was Ulf Nielsen. Now, Jerry did say he really liked Anders, but he wasn't sold on Ulf because Ulf wasn't as good a skater as you and Anders and Inga. But he did say that you guys had a meeting with Bob Davidson, and Bob Davidson was pretty aggressive with Anders and kind of shook him up a little bit, and he didn't come. Do you recall that's how it happened?
I can't remember, maybe they did had a meeting with Anders, but I remember we had a meeting one day, an off day there, we went up to their hotel room, me and Inga, and talked to Jerry and Bob. So I remember that, and they said, there was sort of after half of the tournament, so they said they wanted us to come over to Canada and visit and see, the gardens and all that stuff. So, and we said yes.
Now, the other two guys, the Hedberg and Nielsen, they did okay, I think, when they went to the WHA and played. Kind of worked out.
Yeah, I know, because I can't remember if we talked about those two guys. But I think they asked us, but they were there and saw the whole tournament, so they must have seen them because they played really well. And of course, Anders, really great skater, so he was probably right about that.
Well, and Squid, I'm going to get you in here in a minute, but first off, now Borje, you and Inga are flying to Canada for your first training camp. What was going through your mind coming across the ocean and flying into Toronto? Any idea what you were going to face?
Well, what was good was because we visited Toronto, before, like a couple months before, which was really good because then we saw the gardens, we saw everything around a little bit, so that was really nice. And they, Jim Gregory and I met Harold too, and Jerry, they were so nice. So we really felt comfortable to go over. But of course, I didn't speak good English, but that was the only regret when I was sitting on the plane over there, because I said to myself in the school, I said, when I was reading English, I said, what do I need that for? But when I was sitting on the plane over, I said, holy shit, why didn't I read?
Well, no, you can kind of recount to this one because, the Maple Leafs, when you got traded to Toronto and you and Billy flew across the country, you knew of the Maple Leafs a little more than Borje would have. What was your thought when you landed in Toronto for the first time? I think you guys, what did you guys do on your way over? You guys probably know, and you two probably had a beer on the way over.
Well, actually, it's funny because, Billy, we got on the plane and Billy said, let's have a few beer. And it happened to be election day in Canada, so they weren't serving alcohol on the airplane. And I think he offered the flight attendant $1,000 to serve us. So they said, Billy, don't waste your money. I said, we don't need a beer, And so then we land, and there's like 40 people waiting there, cameras, writers, and everything. And I said, boy, am I ever happy that we didn't drink or we didn't have any beer, because that would have been terrible to come off the plane and have 40 reporters, because I think our meeting with Punch after that would have been a lot different, because when we met with him, all he said was, you guys are going to get a great opportunity to play here in Toronto, and just keep your nose clean and do what you do best. Now, if we had to get off the plane after 6 or 7 beer, that meeting might have been a little bit different, but
Yeah.
but you know what? It was, at the same time, it was great, because right away we went to Long Island. They were on the road, and we started there, came back, and the guys were great. The Borje and Ronnie Ellis and Turnbull and Daryl. Well, Daryl, I don't know if he was really happy about it, because I got traded for one of his buddies, Tiger. And of course, Lanny had been shipped out, and all his buddies, and that was Punch's way of getting back at Daryl. But at the end of the day, we all got along, and it was coming to Toronto and putting on that Maple Leaf sweater for me was like, unbelievable. Playing in the Gardens, knowing that my parents could be watching on TV and everything, it was great.
Now, Borje, for you, when you walked into that dressing room for the first time for training camp, how did the players treat you? I mean, this was 1973.
Yeah.
Tommy Bergman had played in the league before you. There was a other Swede by the name of Alf Stenner who'd played a couple games in the 60s, and there was a Czechoslovakian player that played a couple games also. But you were really the first sort of big name that coming from Europe to step in.
Mm-hmm.
What was your thought walking through the door, and how did the players respond?
Well, it was really good. We actually, the first week, we were not in the dressing room, the regular dressing room. We were in the dressing room across the door. And that, I guess all the rookies was there, and actually the new players were there. I think there was some, because Eddie Shack came back to Toronto at the same year too. So we were there. So after the first week, then we got in the dressing room. But that was fantastic to see just the Gardens. And what I remember the first time we skated at the Gardens, that was when we came 4 or 5 days before the training camp. And me and they asked us, do you want to skate? You want to go and skate? Yeah, okay, we can go skate. So me and Inge went out on the ice, and then we saw everybody was sitting up in the stands, all the, Harold and everybody. I guess, the whole day I guess they were anxious to see us too, see if we could skate, at all. So me and Inge, we said to each other, we said, listen, because we have been skating with Brynäs, for 2 months. So we were really prepared for the training camp. We said, let's really show them now. So we skated like crazy, we're shooting the puck and everything. So really tried to show them, no, we can play hockey. So, and Jerry told me afterwards, many years afterwards, he said, listen, that time, because he was so nervous, because nobody else had seen us play, sort of like Bob Davison, but then everybody sort of looked up to Jerry. Oh my God, they're good. And we sort of said, okay, yeah, well, what did I say?
So I guess
that was fun sort of afterwards.
So you did feel, did you feel you did feel some pressure, obviously, going into that camp.
Mm. Oh yeah, there was a lot of pressure, because coming from another country and come in and play, and we knew a little bit, because we knew there was a lot of fighting, because in Sweden you can't fight and all that stuff. So, but when we were got in the dressing room, the guys they really took care of us really good. They could see, I think they could see that we could play hockey. We maybe could help them. So at that, then were really nice to us. But of course, in training camp, there was a lot of that was tough, because a lot of guys wanted to kick us out of there too.
So who was the first guy? That's what I was going to ask you next. During the scrimmages, you obviously must have been tested a few times.
Oh yeah.
Who was the first guy to take a shot at you?
Well, I can't remember. I think there was a lot of them. I think a few of them wanted to show those chicken sweets, let's see, let's go home. Because, we really, if you look at it, because we're coming over and trying to take their jobs. So
yeah,
it was a little bit like that. So
yeah. Now, Rick, I mean, you can relate to that. What was your first practice like with the Leafs when you stepped on the ice and you're traded for a couple of very popular players?
Yeah.
You and Billy feel a little bit of, now that you realize what you're walking into after being greeted at the airport, did that sort of twist you guys a little differently?
Well, no, not me anyway. I don't know about Billy, but for me, I was happy because I wasn't getting the opportunity in Vancouver, and I knew that I was going to get that opportunity in Toronto. And so I was excited more than anything. I wasn't nervous. I was excited. And I remember the first game, we were in Long Island, and I scored 2 goals that night. And then I thought, after that, it was like, okay, everything's going to be fine. I'm going to get a chance to play. They said I would. I did. I scored 2 goals in my first game, so I felt quite comfortable. And the guys made it very comfortable for us, too. And that was the most important thing. And, I think that, and Borje could probably speak to this, too, is that, you look at today, you look at back then, and, when the captain or whoever says, we're going for lunch, you better show up. And Borje would be there. And today it's a lot different. Like, guys don't show up for lunches or team gatherings and that sort of thing. But back then it was a lot different. So everybody was there. And I think that probably was the best thing for me because you got to talk to everybody and you got to sit down and have a beer and talk to everybody. And I think that kind of brought us together and made you feel like, okay, I'm part of this.
Well, that's part of it too, Borje. So I was going to go with that in a little bit, but we'll get right into that now. I mean, part of the team rituals are the fabric of team bonding, and it's very prevalent in all sports. And hockey, for you, that part of it, the socializing, like in Sweden, did your teams would go out after them and they'd go and have a beer or they'd socialize? But in hockey, it was a very predominant thing for players to go out together to have a beer. How did you find all that when you first arrived? Did that surprise you, or were you expecting that?
No, not really. I mean, in Sweden too, of course, everybody, they were not professional back home. Everybody has a job and work daytime and all that stuff. So you can't go and have a beer because you have a practice, then you go back to work for some of the guys. But in Canada, that was really good. Like Squid say, that's really important to join the guys. And, of course, you see each other in the dressing room and everything. But that's really important off the ice and, sit and, have a chat and discuss different things. And then you really get so much closer to each other. And that's how you build a team, I think. And not just drinking beer, but I mean, I have a beer, then everybody sort of relax and, maybe want to say something and everything. Everybody's listening to everybody too. So,
like today. Sorry, Rick.
Sorry, Borje, going back to that, and that brings a certain amount of trust too between the players when you get to know one another. And I remember during our time there, if you probably remember when Harold canceled the charters for the whole second half of the season.
Yeah.
And so now we were staying overnight after every game, and we had Miroslav Fricher and Idacek, and there was a lot of new guys in the fold. And we would go out after games on the road and get to know these guys, which we didn't know them that well. And I thought that was probably the best thing that ever happened to us. We were the 5th best team in the league in the second half because all of a sudden, I got to know Peter and Miro and some of the guys that we didn't really get to know. And then all of a sudden, there was a lot of trust there in one another. And I thought that was really, really important. Much the same as you guys probably had in the 70s, I would think.
No, that's true, because that was so important I told Inge too, because Inge didn't drink at all because his dad had some problems. So he said, I'm not drinking. But I told him, listen, Inge, you got to come with us. Take one beer. I know you don't like it, but have a beer just to chat with the guys and everything, because it's really important to know everybody off the ice too. And I think that's really good what we did there. And same when you and Billy came. I mean, I know how hard it is I never got traded to a team, but I know how hard it's got to be to come to another team from another team, so then you got to really even more make them, home, because, they're coming to us and they're going to help us. So that's really important.
Well, and again, if you guys look at today, the kids today go to the rink, they eat at the rink now, then they go home and play video games.
Yeah, I know. A little different.
It's a little different. So, I mean, them hearing these type of stories, they just probably can't. And the other part of it is, you and Inge would be the only two foreign players on the club.
Yeah.
And you're looking around the room of 18, 20 other guys. I mean, now today, there could be 8 Swedes, 5 Americans, 4 Czechs, and 5 Canadians.
Yeah, it is a little different. Yeah, it is different. When we made a team, like when we came in Brazil, they were so nice. They were so nice, everybody, to us. And because I think they saw that we could play hockey and we can help this team. And when they knew that, everybody was so nice, really.
You remember your?
So that brings me. Oh. Hold on, that brings me back to when I came in, and of course, we got treated very well. Borje treated us extremely well, and I remember Borje having a few parties at his house to get the guys all together and so on. And I remember the one time you had a beautiful place in Hyde Park. And I remember going into the kitchen and looking for a beer or something, and I opened a fridge, and it was just all bottles of vodka, the whole fridge. He had 2 fridges, and I went, "Oh, okay, this is different." But you know what? That Borje had those get-togethers to make us feel like we were all a team, and I really, really enjoyed that. I thought it was really good that he did that. And, but you know what, it just made us all feel more comfortable, that guys that were older than us were looking out for us and making sure that we felt comfortable. And that was one of the highlights of us coming to Toronto was, and I know Joyce, my wife, we went there to Borje's a few times, and we got treated like we were family.
Well, I know any of the guys I talked to from that era said that Toronto Maple Leaf teams from the 80s, they weren't that good, but those guys sure had a good time. So you
yeah, we had a good time on the ice and off the ice.
Well, Borje, here, let's go back to do you remember your first game was against Buffalo? And, and you were player of the game. So did you sort of take a sigh of relief and think, I've showed them that I can play?
Well, I knew I could play. I mean, we played some exhibition games, so that was not the first game I played, so I knew what was going on. But of course, it was a little, nerves, to go in the first game there. But it was just, I never had problems really with that. All I did, want to go out and play hockey, and I love the game. So that was, I just played my game and played hard. So that's all I thought of.
Okay, well, how about this one? Your second game was in Philadelphia. Now, how about going to what did you know about the Spectrum at the time and playing the Flyers?
Nothing.
How was that surprise going in there?
Well, it's probably a good thing.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Really, I didn't know nothing about that. And that was a funny story I have, because in this, I think it was in the first or second period, I had a fight with Dave Schultz. Yeah, he slashed me in the corner, and I slashed him back because, all the guys said, don't just hammer back, whatever you do, and if you drop the gloves, no, just give them back. Okay, so I said, fuck it. I gave him a slash to back, and all of a sudden we came up the blue line, he slashed me, I slashed him back, and then we dropped the gloves, and we had a fight. And of course, in the training camp, we did some practice after practice. The guys teach us how we're supposed to hold on to the guys and little tricks and all that stuff, which was good. But I said sort of, when I tell the story, I always said, you know, I was holding on for my life, you know, because, but Mike Pellick actually told a little story too. He said, Dave Schultz tried to hit me, but he couldn't get it in, not one shot. And I remember that. He didn't get a shot at me. And he was frustrated, I guess Mike said. But anyways, the fight was good. I don't know if I got it in any hits, and I can't remember that. But the fight was okay. But it was the fun thing that was, I came in the dressing room after the first period, and we're sitting, and I can't remember who sat beside me. And he said, well, everybody said, what a go, Borje, a good fight and everything. Oh, thanks. And then he said, do you know that guy? Do you know who you were fighting? No. And he said, well, that was the toughest guy in the National Hockey League. Oh, really? Oh, okay, thanks.
So maybe Borje, it was a good thing that you didn't know a lot about what was going on, the Flyers and the, you know, Broad Street Bullies and who the tough guys were, because that kind of, if you had known all that and everybody had explained everything like that to you, you might have maybe gone looking at it a little bit differently, whereas the being naive to the situation, so to speak, not knowing, probably helped you.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you. You know, that was better to not know anything about him. Yeah, I agree 100%.
Well, now,
whereas in my case, it was a lot different because I knew all about it.
Yeah.
And I felt that I had to fight in order to give myself some room and let people know that, okay, you're not going to intimidate me. But the problem was I got the hell beat out of me a shitload of times because I had to fight some of the tough guys. And I remember playing against Boston and everybody talking about, you know, Stan Jonathan and Winsink and all these guys. But I remember going into the boards with Stan Jonathan. We came off the boards. I don't know what happened, but our gloves came off. And I grabbed him and I hit him square in the nose with the 3 hardest punches I could ever throw. And I looked at him and he went, "Arr." And I went, oh boy. So I just grabbed on and he came out with an uppercut, kind of dazed me a bit, threw me down. And he said, "Don't ever do that again, kid." And I said, okay. But the good thing is he knew that I was going to show up.
Yeah.
And I think everybody on that team at that point knew that, okay, we can't intimidate this guy because he's going to show up. And I thought that was one of the big things that I had to do at the beginning of my career because I knew all about it, whereas you didn't, which probably was a good, big help to you.
Mm-hmm. You've just listened to the first part of our 2-part interview with Borje Salming, the all-time great Maple Leaf defenseman and Hall of Famer. Tune in next week for part 2. But in the meantime, listening to this one, you can get us on all our social media pages, Rick Vive Instagram page, the Ultimate Leafs Fan Instagram page, the Ultimate Leaf Fan YouTube page. Watch for our Twitters on Squid and the Ultimate Leaf Fan. And the Hockey News, our sponsor, the Hockey News. Visit thn.com/deal for subscription rates. Tune into the Hockey News, your source for sports and sports hockey news, that is. So we'll leave it at that, guys, and we'll talk to you next week.